What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Monday off-season edition of Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Bet365. Whatever your bet is, it's never ordinary at Bet365. So download the app, get in on the game, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. And remember, you must be 19 or older to join. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Johnny Lazarus, and I think today is actually our last show with Frank. So it's going to be a bit of an emotional show, a shorter show at that. We only have about 30 minutes for today. Colby, as you can see, is in his happy place. He's at the beach, and
I'm actually I'm in a great mood today, and it's not necessarily about why I'm where I am. As you guys saw, I sent you guys a picture of Sloane's tennis lesson this morning.
Mm-hmm. She's gonna play in Wimbledon one day. Mark my word. Colby Cohen quote.
She has had her second tennis lesson today, and the improvement from lesson 1 to lesson 2 was just it's so cool to see. And like, I feel like as a dad, you all, I grew up playing every sport, lots of sports. I think you did too, Johnny.
Yeah.
When you have kids, it's definitely something that you hope and that you want your kids to do. And so to finally be entering that stage, and now Sloane's only 2. So she's really not, she's still pretty young, but to sit on there on the little sideline and watch her have tennis lessons the last couple of days, it's definitely one of the best things that I've seen. And you're right, I said it, my kid's gonna play in Wimbledon one day, you mark my words. So you guys can bring the receipts. In 15 years, I was showing her videos of Maria Sharapova when she was 17 and she won Wimbledon. And so Sloane's been walking around saying, I'm going to play in Wimbledon. She's been walking around telling everybody that. And so, listen, when I was like probably 4 or 5 years old, I was in the concourse at probably the Spectrum at the time, and telling people I was going to play for the Flyers, and people would just kind of, okay, sure. Like,
when you're a 5-year-old, of course.
I know.
What are they supposed to say?
So you gotta brainwash them early. So anyways, that's why I'm in a great mood today. But I do agree with you. This is Frank's last show with us. We'll get him on here next year. It's not as if Frank's, disappearing off the face of the earth. And as I've talked about frequently on the show, my and Frank's relationship goes back to when we were very, very young kids and hockey teammates. So, but it is important to celebrate the fact that we wouldn't be here without him. This show would not exist without Frank. And all that he did to get this show into the hopper. And I was actually thinking about it this morning as I was going over to our working document that we use for the show. It's the original working document, Johnny, from when you and I had our first conversation with Frank about what the concept of the show we wanted to do was. And we've never left that document. There are notes from, I guess it would be like 2+ years ago, because that's when we started workshopping this thing. And we still have some of the original thought bubbles and notes that we had about what we wanted to make this show out of. And then you start thinking about the fact that this is Frank's last run with us here for his normal, scheduled appearance on the show. And I'm like, wow, this is a marquee moment. This is a benchmark. End of season 2. I know we're in off-season mode, but we're still going live. And our last regular appearance with our guy. So it's important to talk about. It is, because we certainly will miss having him in his regular spot.
Yeah, and before Frank comes on, Colby, obviously we can relay these sentiments to him, to his face, when he joins here.
I'd rather not say it to his face.
Well, I will, but I do want to get into a heated discussion quick, and I think we're both going to be on the same side of this. But if you're an Oilers fan, cover your ears, because I'm sure you're sick of hearing me talk about, I guess, or hating, air quotes, hating on the Oilers, which apparently I've become a Oilers hater. But there was a tweet over the weekend that surfaced that I was like, I don't want to say rubbed the wrong way, but I thought it couldn't be more wrong. And I'm probably in the unpopular opinion on this, but I'm curious where you stand. So I want to read this tweet from Matt LaBelle. Don't know who Matt is, but I just, it was kind of like going viral, I guess. Matt said, these Florida Panthers decided to come out as full-on douchebags ever since this cup win, insulting players, cities, and fans. It's honestly taken away from their championship and really revealed the vast majority of that team are classless losers that don't deserve much respect. I couldn't disagree more. I think what the Panthers have done has been honestly, like, that's exactly what I would want the team that I root for to be. I would want them to embrace being the villain. I'd want them to love being hated. I'd want them to inflict all the pain on their opponents that they have shown. And I think from what we've heard, I haven't seen or watched any video of what these chirps were, but a lot of people reported that this was like the most trash talk they have ever heard in a playoff series. And if you beat a team 2 years in a row in the Stanley Cup final, yes, you have every right to rub it in their face. So I know there were videos of like Greer and Kachuk saying Connor McDavid, who fuck the Oilers. Like that's what winners do that. So I'm probably, you're probably surprised that I'm on that side of the argument, but like, the Panthers are the big bad bully that someone has to beat at some point, and until you do, they're going to let you know about it. So that's how I feel about it, Colby. I don't know how you feel about that tweet.
I absolutely love what the Florida Panthers are doing as far as the way that they're celebrating the Stanley Cup. Winning, it's the hardest trophy to win in sports, period. The war that you go through, war is probably not the right word to ever use.
Definitely not the right word to use today. Yeah.
But the what you have to endure to win that trophy, I have no problem with it. I think it's great for the league. I think it's all over social media. Again, we all want to grow the game, and then the minute players show personality and they get up and they do Wolf of Wall Street jokes, right? And they're like, I'm not leaving. Like everybody's butthurt about it because they're shit talking. I mean, it's just ridiculous to me. And, why don't you read Frank into the show and let's make him part of this conversation? But I'm annoyed by the hate that but listen,
no, it's good to hate them. That's what they want.
But when you're the best, everybody's jealous of what Florida has. They've got a great team, a great organization. They've got a bunch of guys who love to have a good time, right? They don't give a shit what you think. And they're the best team in the NHL, and it's not even close for the last, 24 months? That's a hell of a long time. So good for those guys. Let's get Frank's opinion. Read him into the show.
So before we bring Frank on for what might be the last time for a while, just want to give a quick word to our sponsor, Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care. Made in Italy since 1948, Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps. Hockey15. Frank, good morning. Where are you?
How are you guys? I'm down the shore, not far from Colby.
Oh, nice. Yeah. You guys playing tennis today?
Have you seen me playing tennis?
It also is. It's too hot.
Yeah, are you kidding? Hot. Way too hot. But by the way, speaking of something that I lack, very impressed with the Panthers' stamina to keep going. I mean, this is like the Cup was won last Tuesday.
It's still going hard.
To still go on Sunday it's pretty impressive.
Are you bothered by the way that they're celebrating it all? Because there's so many people that are in their feelings on social media. They're classless. They're this, they're that. And Johnny and I were just talking about the fact that
most of them are just Oiler fans. That's why
it's unbelievable to watch how much fun they're having. Like, I'll be honest with you. I'm watching those guys give speeches, Franks, and like the hair on my arms are standing up a little bit because I just love to watch these guys in their glory. Like I remember, again, sort of hiding on the sidelines while the guys did their speeches at the parade in 2011. But just like the fans are eating it up, the players are eating it up. Like I'm actually annoyed by the hate that they're getting, and I think that is just being a sore sport and having a loser mentality.
I'm with you. And then the next thing you see is people trying to knuckle drag the Panthers fan base on social media by saying, oh, look how few people are here. What is this? A Trump speech? Like, come on. Like you can't hate the people that are winning.
So what? Listen, the Chicago Blackhawks are going to have a bigger fan base at their parade, but you know what? So what?
To
The
think that
people
this
are
is even
there-
like, if you rewound back to 2012, okay? So I covered 1,000,000 games in that Panthers arena with no one there. We're talking a couple thousand people at most. And then you think back to the decade of darkness that the Oilers had. If you would have said that those two teams are going to meet 2 years in a row in the Stanley Cup final, and oh, by the way, the teams that have been no good since then include the Blackhawks, the Kings, pick all these other teams. The Flyers haven't been competitive in forever.
Calling the Kings no good is a little unfair.
Okay, but they went through a rebuild. Like, they went through a huge stretch of time where they were no good. The point is, this is a cyclical, world in the NHL. Sometimes what's up is down, and what's down is up in short order. And we can think about that with regards to transactions this week, trades, pieces that are going to be on the move. Things change in a hurry.
Yeah, and Frank, I want to actually jump into off-season mode, because we can go on and on about that. But again, like the celebration will continue for the Florida Panthers. But what Colby and Vic and I were talking about before we got live today were the Islanders and the Bruins. It seems to be like the Islanders, it's not a secret, or not a well-kept secret, that they're trying to trade for another pick in the top 10. And I've seen the tweets.
Maybe not,
What?
Johnny. Let's ask
Well, I'm
Frank.
saying
Maybe
the
that's
rumor.
just
That's
a
what we were
Twitter
talking
rumor.
about.
We don't really, just because it's on Twitter doesn't mean it's reality.
I'm just saying that's the rumor. Like, so I'm going to ask Frank if there's any truth to it.
I have not heard the Islanders focused in on that. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think so much of it has become a wild running speculation story of, hey, James Higgins, if he's available, that they're going to try and jump up and get him. I'm sure there's other teams out there that are picking in those slots that are trying to get their hands on a James Higgins, that it's going to make it pretty difficult. So I think the Islanders have been focused in the last week or so on trying to understand what the market value is for Noah Dobson, based on what I put out there was the initial ask from his camp. I don't think that they were very comfortable with the direction of that conversation. And that doesn't mean that they're going to trade him. It's just that for a guy who's 1 year away from unrestricted free agency, this is the time to make that decision. Are we signing this guy to, I guess you could arb him for a year and take the 1 year deal and walk him to free agency, but I don't know what any sense that would make to your team building aspect. And then the other thing that I think they're keyed in on is trying to figure out what this center market is like, because I think there's been some pretty significant interest in JG Pageau, and that's the prime example. I'm glad you brought up the Islanders, of how quickly things change in a hurry. 1 year ago at this time, JG Pageau was on my buyout candidate list and had been a trade target for a while. He has a strong season and a statistically depressed year for most New York Islanders. And all of a sudden, a conscientious centerman who has 1 year left on his deal at a very reasonable $5 million, he's already playing in that 40 to 50 point range where $5 million is very reasonable. There's a lot of teams that are interested.
Yeah, well, and I will just ask you this and say this. I think trading Noah Dobson would be a mistake. This is a right shot defenseman who's 25 years old. I think his far and above the best hockey is in front of him. And I think, again, that he has shown moments of being every bit of a top pair defenseman. He had a 70-point season. The 2 seasons before that, he had 50 points. Those guys don't grow on trees, right shots. And do you think that he is, and Ariel in the chat says he's a $7.5 million defenseman at best. I just disagree with that wholeheartedly. I don't know.
Last season, Ariel was saying he's in the comparison of Adam Fox. Like,
I don't think he's that far off at 7.5. But that's on the here's the problem. That's on the old cap number.
Exactly. He's
right.
a $9 million defenseman by today's cap standards. And I think that is the right number for a guy who gets you 50 points plus every season and is a 6'4" right shot defenseman who, can do a lot for your team. I think it would be a mistake. Frank, do you think it happens?
Do I think what happens?
Do you think
trade?
Noah Dobson does get moved here in short order leading into the draft?
I think there's a real chance. Yeah, I'd say it's a toss-up because he doesn't want to be paid like a $7.5 or $9 million defenseman. And with the cap going up, they're pointing to that 70-point season and clinging to it. And it looks to me, at least right now, like that's a bit of a statistical outlier that he hasn't played at that pace. He's been up and down at times, inconsistent. And I think the one thing that does stand out about Dobson's game is that it, at times, although there's many special elements to it that he brings that few others can, but he doesn't defend well. And that part, I think, really stands out in terms of that conversation moving forward and how it shapes up.
I just don't think he's that physical. He's not that physical.
I think that the defending part is usually the last thing that guys truly grow into. And I remember, and I feel this way about Alex Pietrangelo. Now, I think now is when we started to see superstar Alex Pietrangelo at around 25 years old. I mean, he was very good before that, but to me, he became a dominant number one type of defenseman to me right around 25. And I that was the last hole. Like, he could defend better than Dobson. I'm not saying it's completely.
But Dobson has a way more special offensive upside
because the offense slows down. Like I feel like too for those defensemen.
Exactly. So I was just kind of curious your thoughts. I want to pivot here with you a little bit. And I want to talk about some of the Chicago Blackhawks news over the past few days. And then maybe you can give us a little bit of insight into where you think they're going with their draft pick or what they're talking about in Chicago. They get rid of Veleno, and they bring back Andre Burakovsky, who, had 3 great seasons in Colorado, 20 goals, right? 3 years in a row. Then he goes to Seattle, and it didn't work. It didn't click. The team wasn't very good. 13 goals, 7 goals, 10 goals. Obviously not enough after getting a pretty good contract that he did. Is this a guy they're looking at and they're like, all right, he's skilled enough that maybe he can play in our top 6 with a guy like Connor McDavid? And is this the kind of thing we can expect from Chicago heading into free agency? Or are they going to go try to take a big gamble and offer Mitch Marner a massive deal? Not that Marner would say yes to them, but I'm just trying to gauge where they're going this offseason from a rebuild but get better standpoint.
Okay, so with regards to Burakovsky, I think a lot of people got the equation wrong. Essentially, what they did was trade their extra goalie in Peter Mrazek, who they had no use for and was making a pile of money, for Veleno, who then they flipped. They tried him, gave him ice time and opportunity, wasn't working. He was closer to a 4th-line center than a 2nd-line center. And with that, they felt like there was limited upside. So if we were planning on spending that money on our books with Mrazek and the cap space doesn't matter anyway, which player has the much higher ceiling? And the answer in Burakovsky or Veleno is certainly the 2-time Stanley Cup champion in Burakovsky. So yes, it didn't work. Yes, the contract is ugly. And a lot of people are like, why would they take on that money? Because the money's irrelevant. They have to spend to get to the salary cap floor anyway. So you might as well take a flyer on someone who has higher end potential that can help you in your top 6. And if it doesn't work, then you're just back in the same spot that you were previously. What does that mean moving forward for the Hawks? I think the way things have gone over the last 10 days, they are very, very likely to now pick at number 3. I'd say a 95% chance that they keep their pick and are going to select there. With that, free agency, I still think they're going to try and be aggressive on the trade front, but they might ask for a conversation with Mitch Marner. I don't think that they're realistically sitting back and saying that they're going to be someone that lands him, but I think they're going to probably try and get in the mix, I would imagine.
But by the way, everyone, come on. I meant Connor Bedard, not Connor McDavid. Come on. I think that's to be inferred. Johnny, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to switch gears to the Pittsburgh Penguins. They've hired a pretty interesting coaching staff with guys who don't really have a lot of coaching experience. And Frank, I see Erik Karlsson and Brian Rust on your trade targets list. What is their plan? And again, I know, Sidney Crosby is going to get talked about a lot again. How is Crosby signed up for what's happening in Pittsburgh right now? I don't understand it, how he could want to be there.
He's a 3-time Stanley Cup champion and a guy who's incredibly loyal. He is in for pain. What are they up to? They're trying to be bad. They're trying to tear down this roster that has caused a lot of pain over the last 7 years since they last won a playoff round. They have now changed out one of the stalwarts that you mentioned in Mike Sullivan.
Mhm.
They are in the process of trying to, move away from these mid-30s vets. And
Yeah, Malkin's
Carlson,
name I forgot to add too. Malkin, they said it's his last year as a Penguin. Like, I forgot to
Is
mention
yeah,
that.
he's
Fenway
not on
Sports
the
Group
list.
trying to
He's not
sell it?
getting.
Frank,
that?
are they trying to sell the whole team too?
They are. They have been engaged in talks with not one, but two groups about moving the Penguins. I think Fenway Sports Group is in way over their head. And I think they recognize that they thought they were buying a premier franchise. And I don't think that they necessarily accounted for a team that was going to be on a vast decline. And by the way, you mentioned Sid. This franchise being for sale, Sid's directly tied to that. You can look at it from two perspectives. Either the new one coming in is going to want Fenway to move on from Sid potentially first so that they don't have to be the bad guys, or they're looking at it as this is one of the crown jewel players, a Mount Rushmore player of all time in the NHL. We can continue to sell our brand around him. Either one is interesting, but he's still right in the mix of all of it. And they're the only team in the entire NHL that's actively trying to pare down everyone else. And that's why it might really slow movement and transactions over the next few weeks, is everyone's trying to get better. Everyone's trying to improve and become a playoff team. The Penguins are the only outlier.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting conversation. Talk about an expensive buyer's remorse, right? I mean, like, that is a big price tag. I guess they're learning that with the Red Sox, they can be bad and still make money. With the Penguins, you can't necessarily make money when you're bad.
Pittsburgh only likes a winner. That market does not show up for teams that lose, and it doesn't matter how many Stanley Cups you've won. Think back to the early 90s and the cups that they won, and then think about the pain that followed the decades where people just didn't go to games.
Yeah.
And especially now with how expensive things are, it's a tough time to be a Penguins fan because their ticket prices are among the highest in the league.
And it is a hardworking blue collar city out in Pittsburgh. I mean, listen, we're Philly guys, we're Eagles guys, but we still have a level of respect for, what they've done on the western side of our state, Frank, for years and years and years since we were little kids. And, I want to go to another superstar and head west and talk about the Connor McDavid press conference. And, what you took away from that, and, what you think about the rumors now that McDavid might only be interested in a short-term deal to keep their feet to the fire. I've heard that now about Mitch Marner as well. It would almost be more like the NBA, which I do think having players potentially, it gives us a lot to talk about when guys are on these expiring deals or going into free agency or whatever. But what did you take away from the Edmonton thing? Because I still think there's less than a 5% chance that guy leaves the Edmonton Oilers in the near future.
I think it's less than that. Honestly,
okay.
I think it's less than 1%. I think
so.
Connor
Flyers fans can take a chill pill with the fact that they think he's coming to Philadelphia, because that's the biggest eye roller for me.
Leaf fans, I mean, come on, it's insane. He's not leaving. Look, the way I view that press conference last week, where people tried to read between the lines, thinking that this is a guy that's cracking open the door for him to leave, I view it as someone who has been agonizingly close to achieving a lifelong dream, 15 wins and 14 out of the 16 required. And he's also probably angry at himself. Game 6 and 7 last year, game 6 this year, 0 points. Everyone's expecting this, Mark Messier type game to, extend the series, and he just hasn't had it. And honestly, I'm not knocking McDavid. Part of that is what the Panthers did to them. The Panthers dictated and controlled that. So he's wearing the personal failure. He's wearing the team failure of falling short of the ultimate goal. And he only thinks about one thing. This is how Connor McDavid's wired. If you had said to him back in April, you can either lose in the first round or get to game 6 of the Cup final, but you still lose. Which one would you take? He would take losing the first round, because to him and Leon Draisaitl, second is first loser. It really is. Doesn't matter how close you got. The only thing that matters is winning the ultimate prize, and they haven't done it. So with that, what does the next contract look like?
Well,
wait, hold on a second. Here's the thing. A lot of the narrative around Connor McDavid and this next deal, and he might be open to taking a shorter one, is entirely driven by his agent and the style of contracts that Judd Moldaver has signed for his clients. Austin Matthews, go through the list. They've taken less than the max term to get another kick at the can. You framed it as to put their feet to the fire. No offense, I'm not saying he won't do it. I don't buy any of it. I don't. Because I think the last thing that Connor McDavid wants is for this conversation to be happening again 2 to 3 years from now.
Yeah, it's a great point. He's not a me guy.
He takes the 8-year deal, call it $16 million a year, another $128 million bucks, because the truth is this. If he wakes up 3 years into this 8-year deal and he says to the Edmonton Oilers, hey, I'm not seeing it here. I don't think we have a chance to win. I want out. All he has to do is raise his hand. What do you think the Edmonton Oilers are going to bully the best player in the world? No, they're going to move him because they're going to have no choice. So take the 8 years, put it beside you, take the security, and don't think about it again. Do not galaxy brain this conversation.
Well, it times up with the fact that we could be nearing a potential CBA extension. So at least he would have an idea. Here's what the landscape is going to look like for the next 6 years or whatever the number is. Again, we don't know exact salary cap projections and where that will go, but you at least get a sense of like, okay, here's what escrow might look like, or here's where contract lengths might look like.
What if they say you can sign an 8-year deal now, but in the next CBA, you can only sign a 7?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. So there's give and take on it for sure. Either way, look, I'm all for getting all your money, 128 plus the whatever amount he's already earned.
105 that he's already earned. Like, it's not even like a thought. He's not motivated by money anyway. He has more than he could spend.
Yeah, for sure.
I just think all he could have said that would have made people feel better is this is the place I want to be. He never said that. That's the only reason.
It is true, but it's a negotiation, Johnny. It is a negotiation.
It's better that he didn't say that, because also had he said that and maybe he doesn't sign an extension and goes somewhere else, then it's McDavid, he lied to us. I don't know.
I don't even think that he's wired any other way, which is how do we figure out how to win? And that's it. And by the way, the other thing, people want to point to the agent and say, hey, look, these are the deals that he signed. How do we even know that Connor McDavid's married to this agent? This wasn't a guy that he picked. It was a guy that he inherited.
Yeah, when his agent
is currently the CEO of hockey ops of the Edmonton Oilers. Doesn't mean that whatever Judd Moldaver thinks is the best course of doing business is necessarily what Connor McDavid does.
Yeah. All right, Frank, listen, it's 9:28 and it's we're coming to the end here, but look, we talked about this before you got on the show, and I know we've said this to you before, because we wouldn't this show would not exist without you, and so we know this is you'll be back at some point. You'll be back on our show. I know that to be a fact. You can roll your eyes all you want, but you will. And but we wouldn't have this show.
Honestly, Frank,
we wouldn't have this show every day. Our chat, you guys wouldn't have us every day. You wouldn't be able to come here to yell at us and to tell Johnny that he's a dummy. So to a guy who deserves the executive producer credit, no matter how long this show continues to go on for. Again, it wouldn't. Morning Cup of Hockey would not exist without you. So I told Johnny I didn't want to say that to your face. I figured I'd wait till you got off the air today, but because you've been such a smiley, bright mood this morning, I figured I'd tell you right to your face.
Well, I appreciate it. It's been a blast watching you guys grow, and honestly, for you to slap Johnny around every day. The chat and your organic community that you've created, the fact that this is appointment viewing for people that wake up and come to see you guys every morning is really special, and really a bittersweet week for me. This is a place that I, dug in really gave a lot too. And so for this to be my last week at Daily Faceoff definitely is, it's emotional, and I appreciate everything that you guys have done on your own to build it and add some support to our team. And you guys have created a brand all on your own, through your personalities and your intuition, your knowledge, your connections. And it's been really fun to watch it grow. And I'm definitely a bit sad to move on.
Yeah. And, I know Colby said his words, but I also want to thank you, Frank. And 2 years ago, when I met you for the first time at the NHL draft, I was actually very intimidated by you when I was interviewing you for the first time. And now, I guess I could say I'm not intimidated.
Still be intimidated by him.
I can call you a friend now. At least maybe the friendship is one way.
No, are you kidding?
I know.
No, it's been great to hang with you guys, and wish you all the best moving forward. Jonny, Colby, I'll be talking to you, and best of luck with Morning Cup of Hockey.
All right, Frank. Have a good rest of your day, pal. Thanks for getting up with us this morning. And actually, J-Rock said in the chat that the most heated arguments were never really between you and I. They were actually a lot of times between Frank and I.
Yeah.
Which is really true. If you're really listening,
it is true.
Frank and I we've thrown haymakers at each other. And I think that's the beauty of our friendship, is that we could do that, and then we could go sit down and have lunch right when we're done.
That's the theme of this show.
Yeah, disagreement is I think it's so good and so healthy. So he'll come back on. Like, I don't know if we'll have a regular hit with him next year like we have, but it won't be the last time you ever see Frank on our show. So we wish him well, and we look forward for him to tell everybody what is next. And like I told you guys before, like, I know a lot of NHL teams have been knocking on his door for a while. So it just depends. Does he want to join the other side? Does he not? It's going to be up. It's going to be up to him, which is a great place to be, to let it be up to you, Jonny. So do we have to do a 3-6-5 here before we walk on our way out? Because I know you got somewhere you got to be, right?
Did it off the start. A bit of a shorter show today. Again, we apologize for going a little bit short today, but obviously throughout the playoffs, Colby and I have gone, hours and hours and hours, giving everybody, I guess, I don't want to say like, oh my God, we're heroes for giving our extra time.
Well, but we were doing hour and a half shows every day.
I have an obligation I have to get to this morning. So
do you want to just tell everybody what it is really quick? Because I think people would be pretty interested in it. And then you got to go.
Well, I also wanted to talk about like the Fanatics Fest over the weekend, which was great. If anyone hasn't heard of Fanatics Fest next year, you got to get to it. Like, anyone is at that event, like athlete wise, like LeBron, Tom Brady, the Hughes brothers, Henrik Lundqvist. Like, there is just so many cool people at Fanatics Fest. But today I actually have like a pickleball event. That's why I'm wearing this very nice shirt from Roan. They provided it for me. So I have to get to Central Park right now to play pickleball in 90-degree weather. I'll talk more about it tomorrow. But yeah, I love you guys. Thank you again for joining us this morning. Yeah, I know. Sharma was in my DMs this weekend too. I was at a wedding, and I think he was like, "You're next, buddy." But I don't want to ramble on because I have to get going now. So Colby, just finish up the show, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, listen, make sure you give us a like on this episode. And I know it was a little bit short. We've got a huge audience in here today. John Butchergross retweeted it. So we got a big group of people in here. We went over 30,000, guys. That's what we asked. We said our subscribers, we needed to finish the NHL playoffs at 30,000. We're well over 30,000 now. We're 30.2. 30,200 plus. So again, can't do any of this without you guys. We're here for you guys. We're going to be live today. We will be live Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week. And then as we go into next week, we will do a live show Monday the 30th. We will have our free agency special for Daily Faceoff Live on the 1st. And then Jonny and I will do our last live show of the season on July 2nd. Just to recap everything that goes on during the free agency frenzy. We're going to get Glenn Heffron on this week to talk about the draft prospects coming out of the USHL. We're going to get Jeff Marek on this week to talk about the major junior kids coming on and whatever else. I see people asking about John Tavares and other players that are in and around the news. The Jonathan Taves contract, like we'll get to all that this week. So again, we'll keep bringing people on. We'll start edging towards like shows that we talk half about the draft, half about everything else going on. And like I said, we've got let's see, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Monday, Wednesday. So 5 live shows left until we shift into off-season mode where we're every Wednesday, 9 a.m. So again, we hope everybody has a great day. Johnny, get to your event.
Yep.
We hope you all enjoy some nice weather if you have it where you are. And we'll see everybody as we always do tomorrow, 9 a.m. Have a good day, everyone.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.